When it comes to the Affordable Care Act, aka Obamacare, a large percentage of the public is completely misinformed about what the law actually entails. Many of these misconceptions have been intentionally cultivated by political pundits from both the left and the right. And predictably, people have latched onto the distortions which most closely fit into their worldview. Let's remove all the party politics and set the record straight. One of the most prevalent misconceptions about Obamacare is that it's socialized medicine. Some view this as a good thing, others view it as a bad thing, but the debate is irrelevant because it simply isn't true. Socialized medicine, like what they have in France, provides all citizens with healthcare services regardless of their income bracket and pays for it through taxes. That's not what Obamacare does at all. Obamacare is designed to force every single person in the U.S. to acquire health insurance from private companies regardless of where you get it. If your employer doesn't provide it, then you must purchase it on your own. If you don't, you'll be penalized, and that penalty will be collected by the IRS. This is referred to as the individual mandate. According to a recent Gallup poll, 43% of uninsured Americans are completely unaware that the individual mandate and the penalty associated with it exists at all. The IRS, however, will clear that up for people soon enough. Now, most conservatives were outraged by the individual mandate, while most liberals came out in its defense. This is ironic beyond belief. The idea for the individual mandate actually originated from the Heritage Foundation, a conservative think tank that's now coming out attacking Obamacare. And Obamacare is modeled after the system put in place in Massachusetts by Mitt Romney, also known as Romneycare. Both sides were hoping you wouldn't notice that little detail. There's also been quite a bit of disinformation surrounding the penalties. The penalty for not buying insurance was set up to increase gradually over a period of 3 years. In 2014, the minimum penalty is $95 or 1% of taxable income, whichever is larger. In 2015, it's $325 or 2% of taxable income. And in 2016, it's $695 or 2.5% of taxable income. The maximum penalty per family is currently capped at no more than 300% of the minimum. So in 2016, that would be $695 times 300%, which is equal to $2,085. Of course, you'd have to be pretty naive to think that these minimum penalties won't be increased over time. Remember, when the income tax was first implemented, most of the population only had to pay 1% of their paychecks to the federal government. The percentage is obviously much higher now. The penalty for not buying insurance starts small and grows each year to reduce backlash. It also gives the law's backers a convenient talking point. After all, $95 is no big deal. But your penalty will only be that low in 2014 and only if you make less than $9,500 a year, which is well below the poverty line in the US. That minimum penalty, which goes up to $695 in 2016, may not seem like much to the uber-wealthy congressman who wrote this bill. But for those scraping by month to month, it would be a very painful blow. This, of course, is where the insurance subsidies come in. Many of those in the lower income brackets will qualify for tax breaks to cover part of their insurance costs if they participate. This sounds kind of like socialism, but the big difference is this. In socialism, there is no middleman. With Obamacare, the insurance companies are still getting paid the full amount, and those insurance companies are making a profit. So in reality, this isn't socialism. It's not even capitalism. It's corporatism. And this brings us to the crux of the issue, the permanent middleman. Health insurance was originally intended as a rarely used protection to cover major illnesses or injuries. You would still pay for your normal doctor's visits when you needed them, but if you got hit by a bus and weren't able to work, your insurance would make sure that your hospital bills got covered, kind of like car insurance. Since then, the situation has gradually evolved to the point where insurance is used to cover virtually everything, from routine checkups to pharmaceuticals. People don't want to pay for anything directly. They want the insurance companies to cover it, and the market has adapted to this expectation. It's not hard to see how some would see this as a positive development. After all, who doesn't like free stuff? Just one problem. It's not free. In fact, this trend has led to radically higher insurance premiums and medical costs. Using health insurance to cover routine expenses like checkups and antibiotics is like having gasoline insurance for your car. You still end up paying for the product in question, but you inherently end up paying more because you have a middleman between you and the seller. And that middleman is making a profit. Obamacare takes this already distorted system and codifies it into law, forcing you to pay that middleman and using state intimidation in the form of the IRS to back it up. This provides health insurance companies with a captive customer base that has no way out. Now, supporters will tell you that the individual mandate is necessary to keep insurance prices from rising. After all, the law is called the Affordable Health Care Act. But as it turns out, for most, insurance premiums are dramatically rising as the law rolls out. According to Forbes, initial figures indicate that premiums will rise by 99% for men and 62% for women on average nationwide, with some states seeing increases up to 300%. Of course, if you're in a low-income bracket, these massive increases are somewhat offset by the federal subsidies. But again, the insurance companies still get paid the full amount. So where is that money going to come from? You can say the government's going to pay for it, but the federal government is already $17 trillion in debt, and that debt is growing faster every day. To pin all your hopes on a U.S. government covering the tab, or to assume that somehow you're going to get something for nothing, is just magical thinking. Here's what it comes down to. This law is a manifestation of short-sighted greed. It's a half-baked scheme designed to siphon money out of the middle class and line the pockets of the filthy rich. That captive customer base, with the corporate welfare propping it up, translates into big profits for the insurance companies. According to the New York Times, over the past 12 months, the stock prices of the top 5 publicly traded health insurance companies have increased by an average of 32%. This while the S&P 500 stock index has risen by just 24%. This shouldn't come as a surprise to anyone. The terms of Obamacare were negotiated behind closed doors between insurance executives and government officials, even though Obama promised that those negotiations would be broadcast over C-SPAN. What did you think would be the result of those closed-door meetings? Did you really think that the insurance companies would be looking out for the interests of the people?
We have now narrowed down the Vice President's problems on this thing to one issue, and that is whether we should include these health maintenance organizations like Edgar Kaiser's Permanente thing. Now let me ask you, you give me your, you know I'm not too keen on any stand that order. This is a private enterprise one. Well, that's true. Edgar Kaiser is running Permanente deal for profit. And the reason he can do it, I had Edgar Kaiser come in and talk to me about this, and I went into it in some depth. All of the incentives are toward less medical care, because the less care they give them, the more money they make. And the incentives are on the right way.
I am proposing today a new national health strategy. The purpose of this program is simply this. I want America to have the finest health care in the world. And I want every American to be able to have that care when he needs it.
Nothing new here, guys. Just good old-fashioned greed and corruption. What, you thought Obama was going to be looking out for your interest? The same Obama who signed the NDAA giving the military the power to detain anyone indefinitely without trial? The same Obama who maintains a secret kill list? Who defends the NSA's domestic spying program? And has massively expanded the drone program? You trust that guy? Come on. Seriously? You can't be that naive. We aren't even scratching the surface of this fiasco. We're not going to go into detail about the disastrous rollout of the healthcare.gov website, or how millions of people are getting their policies canceled because of Obamacare, more in fact than we're actually able to sign up in the exchanges. We're not going to try to estimate how much higher prices will rise in the years ahead. But rest assured, this train wreck is just getting started. When people come to terms with something like this, they tend to ask the same thing. What can we do? You really want to know? Disobey. That's the only nonviolent solution. Politicians aren't going to help you guys. I know you'd prefer an answer that puts the responsibility onto someone else. But that wouldn't be honest. Until people fully come to terms with the fact that this so-called government is run by criminals and that we have no moral obligation to obey criminals, then nothing's going to improve. It's as simple as that. For more videos like this, subscribe to Storm Clouds Gathering on YouTube. For updates, bonus content, and to influence future videos, follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/stormcloudsgathering. Our Twitter handle is Collapse Updates, and our website is stormcloudsgathering.com.